I will call the meeting of the Conservation Commission open for October 16th. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from October 2nd.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Moving second, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And to move things along and try to get us out of here in time so we can at least watch a little bit of baseball,
Maybe.
for those that want to. I will open with 363 South Elm Street. You want to set up? I will read it into the record. In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the West Bridgewater Town Bylaw, Rules and Regulations, the West Bridgewater Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing for 265 East Center Street in the in the Brown McDonald Conference Room, 65 North Main Street, for the purpose of a notice of intent filed by Elgar Construction for the property address 265. We're open.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is map 51, lot 22-6, South Elm Street, West Bridgewater, Mass.
Yep.
We were before
Which is different than it was originally, so we're all set.
So we came before the commission previously and received an order of conditions for CLM Development LLC. A person has come along, Mr. John Walsh, and purchased the lot from CLM, and he'd like to do some modifications to the property that was not shown on the previous plan. We have in green, the wetland line is portrayed by Mr. Ken Thompson. And then in purple I portrayed the 50-foot no-touch buffer zone. And what Mr. Walsh would like to do outside of the buffer zone is add more living area and a two-car garage in this area here with a deck and above-ground pool. That is outside the 100-foot buffer zone. What is inside the 100-foot buffer zone is he's proposing a 16 by 16-foot shed. He would like to have a drive-in on the garage, so with the dwelling extended, the driveway has extended back to some degree, approximately 26 feet. And we do intend to respect the 50-foot wetland buffer, and the siltation device will run right along 50 feet away. And we're hoping that the commission will find this as a minor modification and amend the order of conditions that was previously submitted.
John?
As my report indicates, it's an amended order from something that we've already approved, and they added on a couple of accessory uses that weren't on it before. So it really doesn't have any major impact on the resource area. They haven't gotten anywhere close to the 50-foot buffer with the new stuff, so it's pretty much the same project with a few nice little things added to it that weren't shown on the first one. And so I have no issue with it and recommend that we issue an order of conditions and close the public hearing after we have time to discuss it.
Did we mark the 50-foot?
The 50-foot buffer zone is here.
Right.
Before any construction will begin, it's understood that the siltation barrier will be established. And not only that, but along the 50-foot is the, that are indicated is the signs that
Conservation marker, yeah.
that keeps people,
Okay.
to respect it.
Sure.
Anybody else? Any questions from the audience? Butters? Okay. Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to issue a standard order of conditions within the 21 days.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
And second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Moved. And I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the hearing.
Second.
Moved and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Okay, thank you very much for your time this
You're
evening.
welcome.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda, we have 381 East Street, a septic repair.
John, as an abutter, do I need to recuse myself?
I would say that it'd probably be a good idea.
Probably a good idea.
Yep, so
I
there's
will-
enough quorum.
I'll recuse myself on the 381 East Street.
All right, I will read that into the record. Under the Wetland Protection Act, Chapter 131, Section 40 of Mass General Law is amended, and the West Bridgewater Wetland Protection Bylaw Rules and Regulations. The West Bridgewater Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing 16th of October, 2018, in the McDonald Brown Conference Room, 65 North Main Street, for notice of intent filed by Collins Civil Engineering Group on behalf of Tina Vasily, who is proposing an upgrade of a residential septic system within the vicinity of a bordering vegetative wetland at 381 East Street. And we're open.
All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Dave Clinic from Collins Engineering. Here are the green cards.
Thank you very much.
This is a septic for repair for 381 East Street. This is in failure. You can go out there and walk around where the existing system is, which is in the back of the house. It's described with this dotted line. It's pretty moist back there. You really step through some mud area. We're proposing to, the existing tank is here. You can clearly see it if you go behind the house. We're proposed to probably remove the tank because we do have a pipe coming through that tank, and that will have to be removed. There are some wetlands that surround the property. They're off-site, and they were delineated by Brook Monroe. They're shown in green. The property is shown in yellow. The 50-foot is shown as orange, and the 100-foot is shown in pink. The system is placed up in the northeast corner, as far and as close to the street as we possibly can get it. If you look at this property, it follows, it goes downhill pretty sharply here. We've got a 148 coming right through the middle of the system, and the elevation for the top of the system is 148. So what we're going to do is probably push that steep slope just out a bit. And at the corner, there's about a 3-foot fill, and then it follows a slope down to the existing grade. So there'll be a little bit of fill coming in here to cover that steep portion. The whole system is outside the 50-foot buffer. I see there is a proposed stockpile area just to the north of the system. That's where we can place sand and material to be taken out of there as well. There is a silt fence that we're going to propose that starts on the south side of the rear of the property of the house. And it's going to come around the limit of work, come as close as 40 feet to the wetlands, and then go up to the northern property line and right up to the street. The work that's going to be inside the 50-foot buffer, which is a grassed area, this will be a 1,500-gallon septic tank and a pump chamber to pump it up to the septic system. We do show Conservation Commission markers, 3 of them along the back side of the property. That's about it.
There's a current system there already?
Yeah, the current system is this square here.
Yep. How old is it?
It's pretty old. I mean, it's in complete failure. I don't know the exact age,
Okay.
but
John?
As David mentioned, the septic system is outside the 50-foot buffer. It's actually 58 feet away, so it meets the criteria for, or it's above the threshold for not needing some additional mitigation in terms of treatment or conservation easements and those kind of things. So the new system is a heck of a lot better improvement for the environment from where the failed system is located. So I have no issues with the plan with the proposed work, and therefore recommend closing the public hearing and issuing a standard septic repair order of conditions.
Anybody else, any questions? Any abutters, comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make the motion.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? So moved, and I will entertain a motion to issue a standard order for septic repair within the 21 days.
I'll make the motion.
I will second it.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda, we have Sunset Ave Extension.
Thanks.
All right, there's no engineer or no applicant here this evening. The engineer had another town meeting to be at, so he couldn't be here, and the applicant is headed off to Israel as we speak for 12 days. And so, considering the fact that this is just a issuance of a already approved order of conditions that expired and it's already constructed, I figured there wasn't a need for any presentation by the applicant or the engineer. However, if the abutters are here, I don't mind going over any of the information.
Where it's, is this a new filing? Or is it just the
It's a new
extension?
filing because the other one expired, the
Okay, we
permit
need
extension.
Green cards for that?
Yes, we do have them.
You need
Are they
one?
get green cards, or did they
They're-
drop them
they're-
off?
Yeah, they dropped them
They
off.
should-
All right, that
I
was,
think I put them in there.
Yep. Okay. And we've got everything to do that, then I will read it into the record, then we'll just open it and
Yep.
answer questions. Under the Wetland Protection Act, Chapter 131, Section 40 of Mass General Law is amended, and the West Bridgewater Wetland Protection Bylaw Rules and Regulations, the West Bridgewater Conservation Commission will hold a stormwater management bylaw hearing as well as conservation hearing for the project at, was it this one's for Sunset Ave Extension,
Yeah.
and we're open. Abutters, questions? Yes.
So this is not a construction of a new roadway as indicated in the letter? Okay.
This is just the filing that was already with us. It expired, so they just have to,
Just making sure.
instead of coming in ahead of time and asking for an extension, they let it lapse, so they just have to.
Mr. Chairman, could I just ask a
Yeah.
question? So you just pointed out that it's not what the notification said,
Yes.
and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we really need to work on changing what that notification says, because it's kind of a catch-all phrase, and I bet you thought they were doing something in the
I ran
wetland.
from a late train to get here thinking it's a new road. So, you know, if it's just an extension or a renewal of what has already been done,
Right, that's right.
I wouldn't be here.
And that didn't show up in the notification whatsoever?
Nope.
Yeah. So I think we've got to work on that, because she just explained that she rushed like crazy to get here. Other people that might be here have given up.
Is it standard
So-
language of some kind?
Yeah, it says that its applicant is requesting approval to construct a roadway and associated drainage for proposed subdivision.
Yeah.
The
They
drainage
just
already
use the
there?
engineer.
I'm
So,
sorry?
The drainage
Road
is already,
leak.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to-
no, go ahead.
Is the drainage already there?
Yes.
It is.
Yeah.
Has there been any notification on when the applicant intends on actually finishing any of this work?
Or starting.
Or starting construction of the homes, yeah.
Okay, the reason this came up was that they were trying to get a building permit, and I think they've got applications in for a perk test for Lot 1, which is on the left-hand side as you go into the extension. So I think they go 1, 2, and 3 around the cul-de-sac.
Short straw.
That's all right.
So I think they realized that when they were looking for a building permit, that they couldn't get a sign-off from conservation because it had expired. And so that started the whole process. But this particular item is just to reestablish the permit for what was constructed and approved way back.
Is there any history of perk tests being done on those lots?
Well, I
prior
don't,
to?
I don't know. I wasn't aware of any, other than I got a notice that recently that the new perk tests were scheduled.
It's a very.
There'll be more
very
to
good
come.
area.
Oh, it definitely is.
You know, I guess maybe it would have been prudent before allowing the road to be built to make sure that the land is actually buildable.
That should be part of the planning board rules and regulations to do test pits, not only on the lots, which usually that is done, but along the roadway to see whether the roadway is submerged into the water table. Because if it is, it tends to make the pavement crumble after a few years because it's so wet. I think that-
Question?
Rami Itani, 1 Timothy Drive. I just moved to the neighborhood last year, and I'm not sure exactly what is it that they're doing. My understanding there are 3 lots, and those are single-family homes that are being built. I'm not sure if I can ask you that question, if you have the answers, but is it only 3 single-family lots that, or houses that would be built on these?
That's what it appears to be. I mean, in terms of the lots, but the application this evening is for the roadway and drainage. And
Correct.
the subdivision had been approved as a subdivision lots for house construction. Now, I don't think that zoning over there allows anything other than single-family home, but I'm not in zoning, so, but I think I'm
As I
correct.
understand it, the lots were intentionally drawn with not enough frontage for anything other than a single family
Okay.
attached.
So that's probably accurate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Is there any time when they're gonna start doing any work on it? You guys know?
Well, I think with the fact that the perk test was scheduled right away, and I think he's trying to sell the lot, that means that the house construction will start fairly soon. As far as finishing off the road, this will give them 3 years to complete it. So the fact that the infrastructure, binder, and drainage structures are in, it will probably be within a year they'll be coming back to get their certificate.
Okay.
And there may be some hearings for individual houses when they start building. I'm not sure Lot 1 is within 100 feet of the wetland, but I think 2 and 3 are, definitely. So there'd be more notifications. And
It'd be back here again. Yeah.
so maybe we'll get that notification form changed a little bit to let you know what's happening.
Now, when they start building, what time can they start? In the morning?
Uh,
7 a.m.?
I'll defer to Lee.
And what time can they stop?
I would say probably around 5.
7 to 5? Okay.
But you can check with the police. I think they know the
Yeah.
Okay.
rules. But
Sure.
I believe at least it's 7 in the morning.
All right. That
At
was my
night, I'm not
understanding, 7
positive,
a.m., but I didn't know what time they can stop either, so,
Yeah.
okay.
Any other questions?
6 abutters.
Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close.
Second.
Moved in second, all those in favor? Moved, and I will entertain a motion to issue a standard new road construction order of conditions.
Make the motion.
Second.
Moved in second, all those in favor? So moved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in, sorry you all had to
Run.
run to make it.
Where is that going?
That's what we heard too.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right, 265 East Center Street. An amended order of conditions, continued public hearing.
Good evening, for the record, my name is Scott Rogers, JK Home Engineering. We met before on October 2nd, and we had some comments to address, so I want to go over those if you have the time. We did a blow-up of essentially the building in the area to the east of that, in accordance with the requests that were made. So we're showing 3 individual floor drains with traps in them that are interconnected with ductile iron pipe. in accordance with 248 CMR 1010-9-5 of the plumbing code. And then outside the building, we are showing a MWRA oil and gas separator located here, which is a tank, 2,400 gallon tank, that'll have a liner and a leak detection system, as well as an alarm system. So that's going to be in accordance with 314 CMR 18083. So essentially, that's considered a tight tank. And then we have venting that goes to the roof. So those were the comments that were made at the last hearing, and we made those revisions.
I thanks for the drains in the floor.
Correct, yeah.
John?
All right, as my report indicates, the applicant's engineer has addressed all the concerns I had about the floor drains, and they are referencing the state plumbing code and the Matt's DEP's tight tanks for non-septic and hazardous type materials. So I have no issue with the project and recommend closing and issuing.
Anybody else, any questions?
No.
Comments? All right, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Moved. I will entertain a motion to issue new site construction order of conditions.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
We hear that term all the time, contractor units. What is
It's
it?
very popular now
It's just
because
catch all for it.
so many people operate their, let's say, small business by parking their vehicle in their yard and maybe working out of the garage or something.
Right.
And the zoning laws don't allow that. And so they need a place where if someone complains, like a neighbor, that my neighbor's running a business out of his home and it's not permitted, they need a place to go. So these have been very popular in a lot of the surrounding towns. And it basically is a bay.
Not very big.
No, it's a bay. They can pull their vehicle in or store their equipment and their supplies in here. And some of them have a little so-called office where they have a desk and file cabinets and a phone, and some of them are rented and some of them are purchased. Now, I don't know what the arrangement will be on this
Yeah.
one, but it's very popular because it's economical for a contractor to either rent or purchase a unit
Yeah.
and not have to go out and have a big space that has more room than they need.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks.
All right, next we have a continued public hearing for 2610 Vitz Way.
All right, so you can go ahead, Scott. As my report indicated, I sent the engineers a letter because Phase 2 is still questionable as far as whether it's going to be out of the flood zone or not, and there's questions that the review engineer for the commission has on Phase 2. So rather than delaying the project, I suggested to the engineers to just do Phase 1, make the plans only refer to Phase 1. That's all. If it does get permitted, will be allowed to be constructed, and that they'll have to come back for Phase 2 at a later date. It complicates things a little bit because some of the drainage analysis may or may not be dependent on Phase 2, so I asked them to take a look at that. And because The construction season is starting to show some ending point for this year. I recommended to Scott to contact the 53G, the Commission's 53G directly, and see if they can zero in on what final concerns would be, with the full knowledge that it wouldn't be closed this evening unless some big revelation occurs with Scott's presentation. But as you can tell, my report indicates that we should continue until we hear from our 53G, and I didn't hear from him today at all, so it's all yours.
For the record, again, my name is Scott Rogers, J.K. Holmgren Engineering. As John had alluded to, we basically revised the set of plans to remove Phase 2, which is on the southern part of the property, the existing building and the area behind that. So that's been removed entirely from the set of plans, so it's clear as to we're constructing Phase 1 only. As John mentioned, we did have a conversation today regarding this project, and after that conversation, I did discuss the project as well with Phil Cordero from Allen and Major, and came to the conclusion that there are still a few drainage type items that we need to address, but explained to him that we did remove the Phase 2 from the set of plans, which will help clarify a bunch of those concerns, and just to clarify the phasing part of it. So we were in agreement on that, and we are trying to sort of make that happen a little bit faster to try to get that started before the end of the construction season, if you will. One of the things I should mention to you in regards to Phase 2, which is off the table, but we did file the LOMA with FEMA. So that's going to take probably 90 days to hopefully resolve in our favor, but and that will be coming to you probably next year with that Phase 2 part of the project. But so that you know where we're at, we're trying to narrow down the few remaining items with Allen and Major, and hopefully we'll come back with good news at the next hearing, hopefully.
I'll ask, just questioning as a query, if Phase 2 does eventually happen, how much alteration to this Phase 1 plan will there be, if any?
Not really in at all, and I can show you that the Phase 2 kind of comes off right here and goes
Yep.
back behind the existing building, but they're so independent of each other that when we started designing Phase 2, it was a separate drainage system, it's a separate watershed. Really, the connection point is a 24-foot wide driveway here, so all you would really see on this phase is kind of a stub for Phase 1, and then Phase 2 will be a connection point, and then that, so it's literally split in half. There's no real,
Okay.
the drainage is separate, the watershed is separate.
All set.
The only thing that we have to keep in mind is that the abutter to the north, Shamet, the gentleman that was in early during the first few hearings, is very concerned about the development and wants to be kept up to date, and I've been forwarding him copies of the updated plans so that they can review it in-house on their own. And so far, they haven't got back with any major concerns, but I would like to get something in enough time, Scott, so that I can send it on to them before the next hearing. So if the sooner that you can get me that, the sooner I can get it to the abutter to the north.
So just to clarify, right now, I'm waiting for Phil Cordero to finish his review, and then I'm sure I'll get it, hopefully timely, and then I can make my changes after that. But it's always tight when you get the reviews from the.
We have an extra week, I think, between
That
the
might
next
help.
hearings, so this
That might
might
help.
gives us 3 weeks instead of 2, so
That's convenient, that's good.
you've bought yourself some time.
I might need it.
Any other questions, anybody? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to continue to our first November meeting.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
When is the November meeting, first one?
6th, November 6th.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have on the agenda 109 Spring Street.
All right, the attorney for 109 Spring Street said that he was going to try to get here.
We can hold off on that one.
Yeah, we could give him a few minutes then.
We've got plenty of other things to do. 255 Pleasant Street.
We received today an email asking for continuance. I had asked a number of questions of the engineer regarding the water table, because I had done a analysis of where I felt the water table was based on their own plan. The plan for the septic system on the corner lot of South Elm and Pleasant Street, which is a multifamily home that sits there. And the one across the street for Kyle Johnson, the scrap metal yard that's been a mess. Sorry, I don't mean to editorialize. Been ongoing for quite a while, and it's the one that has the stockade fence all along the frontage with a huge hole behind it full of water, so you can tell where the water table is there. And coming up with all those measurements, the water table is anywhere from 30 inches to 34 inches below the surface. And so, reviewing the plans, it looks like the drainage chambers that they were going to put all this drainage water into on the subject lot is 2.2 feet into the water table. So I asked them to go back and look at that and see if it's a mistake in the way they've provided the elevations, or did they use 34 inches and just didn't realize they were in the water table. So they're going to address that, and we should have an answer for the next meeting. And I may have to go out and do some observations if they challenge my 34 inches.
But if it's filled with water, how can they challenge it?
The only challenge that could come up is they had mentioned that in the back of the lot, the water table is down to 40 to 50 something inches below the ground. And I won't believe that until I see it for myself. So that may require, unless they say, yeah, we'll go with 34 all the way around, and then I'll be happy.
Well, they don't dig a trench to drain the water back there.
Yes.
All right, and I will entertain a motion to continue 255 Pleasant Street.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Move in second, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Since we have administrative discussions, I will ask, are you here observing?
Yes,
Okay. Not the problem. Just wanted to make sure if you were here for something that we addressed what you were here for.
just observing.
Alrighty, then we have 25 River Street to sign an order of conditions.
This was approved at the last meeting. We just didn't have the form for signing.
We have oodles of them tonight.
While we're signing this, John, if you want to give us the update on Sunset Ave extension, request for certificate of compliance?
Oh, yes. This is what's needed before we issue the order that we just voted on tonight for the refile. This is to take the old one that is no longer valid and close it out at the Registry of Deeds. So by issuing a certificate for an invalid permit, the applicant can file that at the registry, and any title search would show that the project was never completed under that file number. And now, of course, it will be under the new file number.
Then I will entertain a motion to issue a certificate of compliance without a bond
I'll make that
For
motion.
which one? River?
Sunset.
for Sunset Ave
Right.
extension.
So I made the motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. We have 153 Scotland Street.
That's the location of the site that we discussed at the last meeting, where we want the engineered plans and a filing of a notice of intent. So I've relayed that information to them. They understand what we're looking for. They're grumbling because it's so hard to get engineers out to sites now because everybody's so busy. And I said the worst case scenario would be that you'll have to stabilize the exposed surface over the winter. And if you get approved in the spring, you can plant at that time, because it's getting later in the year to try to grow grass. We've had some fairly nice weather, but it's gonna change very quickly, so we may lose
Thursday
it.
night. Questioning on that site, only because I happened to drive by it today, and there's a
Me too.
considerable amount of water in the front
I did too.
that's not going anywhere. And I'm not sure
On the
about,
right-hand side as you face it?
yeah. I'm not sure about the water that came in his backyard, but if this isn't gonna get dealt with until spring by the
Sorry,
looks, the way it's
yeah.
going. Is there-
Then you go farther down the road towards the river. It's
Well,
just so
I'm
much
just
water
worried about
there,
his
it's
backyard
not
come
gonna go
spring,
anywhere.
that all that rain
But
that's
it's not
gonna
gonna go
come
anywhere.
is going to go to the neighbor to the left. And we're not gonna be able to help that situation at all. Is there any way he can pull any of that material back to keep the water from shedding under, I mean, right now, he's just draining it all onto his neighbor's property.
Well, the commission could decide that you want to do an enforcement action by actually saying in a prescribed way that you will take these steps to temporarily stabilize and correct the situation.
Yeah, I'm just worried that come next March or April, we're gonna get
So
one of
as
those
you're-
March or Aprils like we've
As
had.
you're facing it, it's
To the left.
That's where the proposed little berm was going to be that we talked about, or a little,
Oh, to stop
to get the flow to the back.
yeah, there was going to be a swale
Swale.
created
Yeah.
to get the water in the back, that we then found out that it was a pond dug on the state highway. So that's going to be a difficult one to ask somebody to do something like that when it's going to affect the state property and they're not even a party to what we're talking about. So I think what I will do to address your concern, Tim, is I think I got to get a hold of that neighbor and ask them, you know, how they would like to see it handled.
I mean, I just don't wanna see them come in April with,
I'm surprised they haven't come in yet.
right, I mean, a
Is that right?
situation that's even worse than what he's had to deal with this fall, with the 12 inches or so of rain we've had in a month.
Right.
I mean,
That would have
The
been.
Spring was
fellow
frozen
to the
ground.
right- The fellow to the right had the backyard, was it that him to the right that had the back
No,
flooded,
he's the.
but wasn't
left.
affecting
Yeah.
his house?
Right or left? He's out to the left, isn't he?
So the one that's having the new problem in his yard is the one to the left as you
Yeah.
face it
Okay.
from Scotland
Yes.
Street.
All right, he came in, that's the fellow that came
The
in.
one on the right's trying to sell our house.
right, the one on the right selling their house, and it's just, right now, in the front corner by the road, it's just being collected, it's not being allowed to drain anywhere,
Yeah.
so it's creating a pool effect. And I think before it might have actually drained out to the road and then went along a drainage system in the front or something, but it looks like it's being held back.
There is from what I recall, some type of country drain in Scotland Street on that side.
So I think because of the way he filled, it's kind of damming it back from.
So we'll have to look at that too. So all
Right, but
these,
without engineering or looking at it,
Right,
it's
right.
not gonna fix it.
so if an engineer does get involved, these are the concerns that we're gonna have to express to him to solve and say, show your proposed grading so that you take care of that
Right.
ponding problem in the front right, and then also take care of the ponding problem on the left side with the neighbor, and provide us with those plans and show us how you're going to get it out to the
I still
state highway.
think it would cost less to pull it all out than to hire an engineer to basically do drainage to it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, you know, pull it all out, that might not be the right thing to do, but
I mean,
I think it's gonna cost more than
It's
for what he
gonna be
did.
up to him, yeah.
You got some right,
He's gonna have to
Free fill
have it
for-
engineered anyway, right? Even if he pulls it all out.
yeah,
Yeah.
but still.
Did anybody reach out to the highway department about the little new pond they have?
I think that'd be the State Department.
No.
I didn't.
No.
So we would have like preemptive enforcement order?
We might if the neighbor,
So I'll talk to the neighbor in the
Yeah.
interim and see if they are willing to be patient. And the reason I say that is there could be a benefit to him if the the fellow at 153 agrees to put some fill over onto this abutter's property and take care of that low spot and grade it out so they're all happy, both sides are happy. He may be willing to wait. If he's not willing to wait and he wants it dealt with, then we have to come up with a way to do that. And it might be an enforcement restoration order that says you do these 3, 4, 5 things. And we'll see where it goes at that.
If she sells the house before this happens, the people who move into it might have a problem. And they
Oh,
might-
on the other
and
side.
Yeah, and they might want to
Right.
have an enforcement order done.
They, from what I've heard, the fellow at 153 had talked with the owners of the one that's being sold and had said, I'd be willing to bring the fill right over and eliminate this gap between the two properties.
That's what they're for.
But obviously, that didn't happen, and then if he were to do that, he's got to deal with the way the water ponds in the front.
That's
So
right.
you can't fill it in and then make a bigger pond. You got to still deal with that, either through a culvert or getting it out into the country drain along Scotland Street. So there's a whole
an
bunch of
engineering
things
job.
happening with this, and we've got to go step by step, I think. But I'll start off with talking with the neighbor to the left and see if
if
we,
he's willing to wait, then I have no problem, but I don't want to see him in here with frozen ground and a.
Especially you don't even know what the weather's bringing tomorrow, so
Right.
we could be in for a lot more water, so.
Yeah.
All right, 373 Crescent Street.
that we've made progress where the engineer got out and located the flagging that was done by the botanist. They've done their locations of all the existing conditions out there, and the owner of the property told me earlier today that he's gonna stop by with a copy of the plan for me to look at, because I wanna take and try to use some comparison of what I see on the existing conditions as shown on this engineered plan versus Google Earth back over the last few years, and then also what my pictures that I've taken out there before he bought this property and as he was progressing with his work out there, and see if I can come up with an analysis of how the changes were made and how many changes were made, and how far it should go or shouldn't have gone. We'll see where it lies at that point.
55 Crescent Street.
That I'm recommending to put on the next agenda. That's the one where the fellow,
Needs to refile for the.
where he had his excavator out in the backyard, and we've got to change the conservation easement, and it's just taken a little while to come up with the wording and all that.
And then number 12 on yours, which is the Scotland Street model airplane.
Yeah, finally had a chance to work on that one, and I've given you a copy tonight of what the lease would say. And the highlights on it are that it's a 1-year license. I called it a lease, I'm sorry, a license. They would have the option, provided they came to us 60 days before it expires, to increase that to 3 years. And it was suggested that we do a little at a time just to see how things go. I don't anticipate that it be any different than what it's been, but it was suggested that way by the former assistant town administrator, who's now the town administrator in Dayton. And then also, you'll notice that it's for $1,800 a year. The initial fee will be for the period that they've been there since last November in 2017. So it'd be a total payment of $3,600 for the first year, and then $1,800 thereafter. And it says in here that the fee is payable to the town of West Bridgewater and will be deposited in account used by the Conservation Commission to fund the maintenance, improvement, and protection of other parts of the conservation land area on which this license pertains. So it would be earmarked to be just on the Scotland Street Conservation parcel, and it would be used to do some mowing if we need to mow that to keep the invasive plants down. If we're doing any improvements there, such as trail work or bridge work, temporary footbridge type things, bog bridges, those kind of things, and not to be used on other conservation parcels, nor get into the, and I hate to say this, Mo, but into the town budget.
We should come up with 1,800, just to negotiate a number.
No. I just talked with them about what they were paying Hasiotis before we acquired the land. And it was a little less than that, and in talking with them, they didn't seem to have a problem, but we didn't negotiate, and I just said, why don't we make it 1,800, and they didn't seem to have a problem.
How much land is they actually using? Just roughly.
I have an exhibit that goes with this, and I think if I remember correctly, it's an acre and a half, I think.
That's a pretty good rental rate for
I would say so.
agricultural land.
I would say so, yes.
Yeah, let's say if it's agricultural, it's
Yeah.
what would the taxes be when it's under 60, on the agricultural, so.
Well, I think I looked at that wetland parcel we were talking about the other meeting, and that was 5,000.
Yeah.
And that was only, I think that one was 3 acres.
The one on the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah. My property over there by you.
5,000 for land that you can't do anything with.
Not bad for income.
It's pretty,
Yeah.
Yeah.
if you like wetlands.
Yeah.
I think this looks pretty good. I would entertain a motion to forward it to the town administrator and town council.
Make that motion.
Second.
Moving second, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you, John.
Seems like the
Good
only
Good job.
Was John, or do you have legal? Do you
Seems
have
like the
legal
only thing
do
on
it
mine.
at all, or-
I'm sorry?
You came up with this yourself? I
Um,
mean, and that's cut and paste from stuff and,
I think it's been so long, because it's been almost a year now, but I think I took a standard lease and just cut and pasted it and made it apply to this particular site, if I remember correctly. I'm not that creative legal,
Well, I was
legal
gonna
wise.
say to take that amount of time to do it, you know, we could have had the legal people do it.
109 Spring Street,
You're ready.
perfect timing.
I got lucky.
That's okay.
So if the commission recalls, at the last meeting, the engineer made a presentation on the changes that he had made and had mentioned that he forwarded off to the 53G that is used by the commission. And I received a report back from the 53G that says that the plan had addressed all of his concerns and that he had no further comments to be made about the plan, so he's satisfied. He sent us his last invoice, and we're all set with him. So in the frame of mind to recommend that it would be closed and a order of conditions issued for the three-lot subdivision, and that we discuss with the attorney present just a couple of minor things, or I call them minor, but he may not. My report indicates that one of them is the fact that we're going to continue on with the requirement of a homeowners association to take care of the 50-foot buffer and prevent invasive species from overtaking that 50-foot buffer. And that was going to be put in there exactly the way the first order of conditions read. The only other issue that comes up is the drainage. The town has, according to what I've been told, will not take care of the drainage on private land. Is that correct, from what you recall?
That's sort of the standard position, but the town meeting always has the authority to accept it when it accepts the road, so that's a decision to be made in the future.
Okay.
But it is gonna be a private way.
It is going to be a private way, at least unless and until it's accepted by town meeting as a public way. And so there's a homeowners association in place to manage and maintain the road, as well as all the stormwater management facilities. And if town meeting chooses not to accept any part of it, then it remains the responsibility of the homeowners association to maintain it.
So until it's done, until the town accepts or doesn't accept the road as private or a regular town road, that's when the town has to decide that at the end of the.
Yeah, once the road is constructed and completed, I would expect the developer to request the town to accept at least the paved from shoulder to shoulder part of the road. And I think that the developer could ask the town to accept the drainage as well. As I understand it, it's standard practice for the town not to accept drainage that's outside the right-of-way of the road. So if the town meeting decides to accept just the roadway, then anything that remains that is not accepted would remain the responsibility of the homeowners association. So you have a homeowners association that's going to be in place to manage it from the initial breaking ground until whatever point that the project is completed and it's accepted by the town. And anything that's not accepted will continue to be the responsibility of the homeowners association.
Now, we did that on Luke Estates, because the planning board, if you recall on that one, made it quite specific. They weren't going to have the bioretention areas be part of the drain system that the town would have to maintain. So what we did in that is, in the conditions that were written, that the homeowners association will be responsible for that up until the point, and if the town accepts the road, then the town, any agreements that are made between the homeowners association and the Conservation Commission would be null and void, and the town would then take over the responsibility. So we'll have wording like that. And then I've given each one of you a copy of a storm water management system maintenance agreement. And it's a template. It's not for this one. It was the one that was used for the Trevico's on Pleasant Street, where they were going to be putting up a building and parking area, and it was all on private land. The concern that that the commission has on these private drainage systems is the maintenance of it. So this drainage maintenance agreement would be hammered out as part of the order of conditions, and on that one we specified that it would be a condition that that agreement be made between the parties, and of course that may be some negotiations, but that it be made and recorded at the registry so that it runs with the land from that point on. And then in this agreement, it also refers to the ability for the town to lien the landowner in case the town has to go in and do maintenance and repairs in emergencies. And we did pass that requirement at the last town meeting, so that we have now the ability to lien the property under the Mass statute. So that's what I am proposing for this particular subdivision, is that we would come together and sign a drainage maintenance agreement with the developer and the Conservation Commission and have it recorded, and it would run with the land. And then if that means the homeowners, which will be taking over the common land, they would be party to it as well. And we'll have to word it so that that makes sure it happens.
Any questions?
Well,
I mean, I know you're just seeing this for the first time and you haven't had a chance to read it, so I understand that.
I'm really quick at reading the 4 pages.
Right, no,
I finished it up at 5, I'm sorry.
It's all right. In concept, I think it's fine. My guess is there will be some minor suggested edits to it, but in concept, it's fine. I'm not sure it's really necessary, because the kind of things that you've got in here about submitting reports after inspections on every 2 years or something like that basis, could be a condition of the order conditions and made a continuing condition of the order so it doesn't expire. So I'm not sure that it needs to be in a separate document, but I don't know.
That's just.
I probably would have agreed with you maybe a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But now with EPA, stormwater regulations and those kind of things, they're expecting these to be maintained on a regular basis. And that's about the only way we can have that happen.
Well, it could be a condition, as a continuing condition in the order as well, but you're right. The town is under a lot of pressure by EPA to demonstrate compliance with the MS4 requirements. And so if you're posing this kind of a condition, you get to say, well, look what we're doing for new development.
Right.
I think that basically the actual responsibility of the homeowners long-term is really no different from what it would have been with the continuing condition.
Right.
So it's just a question of what document do you put it in.
Right.
I would like the opportunity to review it, provide edits.
Oh, yeah.
But if the commission could close the hearing and vote to approve the order and have I don't know, some language that says that this will, a stormwater management system maintenance agreement executed that's satisfactory to council or something like that, is fine.
That's about what it will boil down to, is it's got to be mutually agreed.
Is there any chance that there would be no agreement, or if this is
No.
It says prior to construction, it has to be mutually agreed. So if we can't get a mutual agreement, there's no construction.
Right.
Yeah. I would fully expect that we could work out the language of it, and I don't know, I guess you're asking Mr. McCarthy the worst case scenario. I guess the worst case scenario is we just can't possibly figure it out. We end up having to come back here and ask you guys to amend it because we can't figure it out.
Yeah.
I think that's very unlikely.
Good. I'll get you all the information then, as far as what the suggested order will be that pertains to that,
Good.
Right.
before
Yeah.
5 o'clock the next
Is
meeting.
there a motion?
Thanks, John. I know what happens.
If we have no other questions, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion closed.
Second.
Move and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. I'll entertain a motion to issue the standard new road construction order of conditions and allow the stormwater management system maintenance agreement to be negotiated and corrected as needed
Next meeting.
for the next meeting, or do you just want to do it?
Just part of the order
As
condition.
part of the order conditions.
Just have it as
Okay,
part of the
part of the
order
order
conditions,
conditions.
so we're not under the
Makes
same
that
time
motion.
pressure.
Second.
Move and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
So
That's
moved.
great.
We got there.
Thank you, folks.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
That was a haul.
Have a good night.
Yes, thank you for coming.
Yeah.
All right. It wasn't 7 o'clock, Mo, but I think, anybody have anything else?
Just
Yes, we have 1,000 of these.
and while you're looking at that, I gave
1,000.
everyone a handout that is what the EPA is expecting us to complete in the first year. So that first year means as of June 30th, 2019, all these tasks have to be done. The only one done is the top one. We got the notice of intent filed. I haven't seen it come up on the EPA's website that it's been approved yet, but little by little, towns are getting them approved, and I'm checking it every day to keep my fingers crossed that WB gets theirs posted, which means they had no issue. And if they have an issue,
For enough help to do all this, still do the regular things you have to do.
it's going to be very difficult and costly to do this.
I mean, can we, even though the budget is set, I'm not sure whether you can hire additional people if you need them.
Oh, you know what the budget is.
No,
So-
I know, but there's
Give us the
there's a
money.
provision for doing it, I'm sure.
So the answer for this year's, because of course the new budget would kick in on July 1st of 2019, so
Right.
all this has to be done under the existing budget.
Yeah, right.
So if there's a rainy day fund available, that might be able to be utilized, but I would hope
Couldn't have
that,
foreseen all of this, probably, when we were doing the budget, because we
what we have to look at is, this, a lot of this is annually. So
Yeah.
even though they say this has to be done by June 30th, it means that it's going to have to be done every year after June 30th. And so the next year's budget's going to have to reflect it, for sure. But maybe there's some ability to get some of this stuff done within the current budget, and maybe some help from some unknown sources, I'm not sure. We can try to go for some grants if that's possible. I don't know if that's even
slow, yeah.
probable, but the consultants that are out there doing some of this for towns that don't have the ability in-house are talking, hold on to your hats, from 50,000 to 100,000 to do these programs every year for small towns.
Yeah.
Cities, it's up into the hundreds, really easily. So we've got some legwork that needs to be done to even start talking about what the town's going to do, because budget time starts in January. And so we're going to be talking about it very soon.
Yeah.
And that's just talking about the following year and still trying to get these tasks done this year. So it's going to be quite hectic and quite,
I mean, do we,
it's going to be a task.
Well, I guess my point is, if you need, I mean, I know you, and you'll, drive yourself to the wall to do so much of it yourself, and I guess, if you need help, you get it, that's all.
I think, we're definitely going to need help in a couple of different areas. So
Yeah.
some of it, like I say, I think with a little bit of managing time with the existing departments, we might be able to get some of it done.
Okay.
Some of it's pretty easy. Public outreach, some of the stuff they require is public outreach.
Right.
We can get that on the internet with
Sure.
very little trouble at all. It's this other stuff of mapping, checking all the outflows to make sure there's no sewers connected to them, or worse, if it's hazardous materials being connected to it. That's going to take a lot of walking around and finding them and checking them, so that'll be a little time consuming. But I just wanted everybody to have the list so that they know what we're up against. That's it.
should we be looking theoretically at just slush fund type funding mechanism through permitting or something to help offset this? I mean,
Money-wise.
right, I mean, I'm just,
Well, Chris and I were asked by the town administrator to attend the EPA's workshops that they sponsored for free, other than your time to go to them. And there was a series of 4 workshops that helped the attendees prepare their towns for the concept of what these programs are going to cost and a way to fund it. And it wasn't, you can ask for grants from these people or that people. It was set up a stormwater utility, which is a very nice name for a funding mechanism to do the stormwater work. And part of the funding would be, and it's very different ways to do it, but part of the funding would be by every new permit that comes in, there's a stormwater permit fee that's charged, plus a surcharge, and that's not really the type of things they call, but let's say an extra fee for the number of square feet of rooftop and parking lot surfaces that you had, because all of those things generate stormwater. And so the bigger your project, the more fee you have to submit. And it would then go into a dedicated, not the general fund, but a dedicated stormwater management account that
Easier.
that would be, everything would be taken out of that instead of the town budget.
What I was thinking was like our delineation fee that we have, that would be an earmark from, I mean, if it was roof and impervious surface calculations, and you figured out a fee per square foot that went into something like that, that was under the stormwater bylaw, or a permitting fee for, through the building inspectors, or whatever office entity, that we have a mechanism to start building this up, so that, 'cause I can
Yep.
foresee that the stormwater drains, there's gonna need to be some serious upgrades to those, because a lot of them just drain to places they shouldn't be draining. We're eventually gonna have
And
to.
part of the stormwater plan that has to be written for the town, I think it's number 2, the first item below the notice of intent, so the
Yep.
second item on the list. The developers would be encouraged to do low-impact development, which means less pavement, less impervious surface. And naturally, there wouldn't be as high a fee, so that encourages them to do that. But by having fewer drain systems that take a lot of high-tech maintenance, where a low-impact type of drain system takes very little maintenance, you're going to save money there, and so you don't need as much money in that stormwater account. So there's a little give and take there, a benefit to the developers if they do low impact and less drainage. And if they want to go big because they need to and they need all that, then they pay more, and that goes into the fund to do the maintenance and the inspections and those kind of things. So there's a lot of things going on this, and the EPA recognized that they're putting a burden on the towns and the cities, and so they came up with this workshop to help give us ideas that we can go to the stakeholders in this and say to them, this is going to cost money, but we have a way to try to handle it. Would you consider it? Now, no one likes, as an administrator, to say we're going to charge people more money, because it might hurt business, it might hurt existing business, whatever, when they're expanding. But they have to realize that there's only one other way to do it, and that's to take the town budget and just up it and make everybody pay for it, and they're going to hear a lot of kickback on that as well. So you got to have these answers, and I think it was a good idea for us to go. We're not experts in any way, believe me, Chris and I, but we at least have some ideas that we'd be able to go back to the powers to be and say, this is a concept that we should really pursue and see where it goes.
Are they well attended?
No.
That's amazing.
No, it seemed that there were more people who were there attending on behalf of the EPA and land trusts to be able to go out and teach the same course. So they were observers, basically, to teach the same workshop to other people as this starts to become a reality to a lot of towns and cities, there's gonna be a need for these workshops down the road. We were like the test case, the first one, and it was very well done, except for the only problem with any of us that attended is that we had other work to be doing instead of sitting in a workshop. But like I say, I think there was a benefit to it, and
Creeps up on you, these deadlines.
yes. So we've got a lot of work to do, and I just wanted everybody to see
Yeah.
what's up, and to be honest with you, it's a fact that the minutes will show that we discussed this, and the EPA is looking for public participation, and we're in the public, so we're kind of meeting one of their objectives already by discussing this tonight, and there'll be more of these going down the road, so.
And this is new, right? This is a new regulation, a new requirement of the town, so that if we put that out there in the outreach, people are gonna be prepared
Yes.
that this is gonna cost.
Yep.
So that, you know, if you use more of the infrastructure of a town, you have to,
Federal requirement.
yeah, I mean, it's, so I think it's just get it out there, because if people know it's coming, they're not gonna be, you know, crying as much, hopefully. So
Right, not a big surprise.
considering what's going on,
Do you have a stack of them?
this is good. This is
too.
a good thing to happen for everybody.
It's not
so.
like we're doing it personally.
Right, you know, the town,
Yeah.
you know, the people that are gonna use it, they should pay for it, not us, you
Yep.
know? But,
That's the way I'd like to head, but we'll see where
I know.
everything goes.
like I said, if we can get it out there, I think if regular people know, have a concept of what this means, that then, you know, they'll be
It's a
behind
good
it.
idea. I never thought of
Yeah.
like the square footage of a roof or something
Right,
like that. That's
I
a
think that's an awesome idea.
pretty good idea.
Just those.
Figure that out just for a little extra for the maintenance, so you know it is all
Right.
basically storm water.
Right, and it's
It's a good
gotta go
idea.
somewhere,
Hmm.
and if you want it in your basement,
That could
they
be-
do.
Could this get down to the point where it could be on homes? Or is it just basically industrial and
Some
commercial?
towns and cities have done that, is they've had a very small charge for existing homes, just as, it's basically like your CPA, your, what is it, CPA surcharge?
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
that gets tacked on to, I think, the recording fees at the registry, which it's basically a tax
Mhm.
that the new owner of a property pays. That goes into the fund for CPC monies to be dispersed. So you could do that, have a small amount, or you could just put it all on new development. And sometimes that's easier to
I could
take.
see the new development maybe. I mean, people coming in with new subdivisions. That's,
New or renovations or something like that, figure out a.
So if you
Yeah.
have an existing house and the developer paid for the stormwater fee as part of the
Yeah.
development's application. So the new owner comes in and they want to put in the pool, the big
Right.
apron around the pool house, the big patio, and start making more impervious surface, then there would be a fee for that.
Mm.
So
That makes sense.
if the homeowner is satisfied with the beautiful, nice new home in West Bridgewater and a grass lawn behind it without all this other stuff, not that there's anything wrong with it, but you're creating more impervious surface. The next door neighbor who doesn't want to go through that and pay the extra is happy with what they have, and the person with the pool house is happy with what they have and they paid a little extra for it.
Or you, like you said, with that incentivizing situation where you could, if you're gonna use a better material, you're gonna be a little more environmentally conscious
Even
about
if
it.
you kind of think about it later on down the road, and kind of, the house is worth a little bit more. So it's not, you're paying a little bit right now, but I mean, you're gonna get it back, you figure, hopefully in the long run.
Sure, the value of the
So
house.
it's, no, it wouldn't happen for decks or anything like that, right?
No, that's too
Nothing.
small.
Yeah,
Yeah.
porches or something, yeah.
And-
But
Yeah.
it's amazing by using Google Earth. A fellow came in yesterday, and his neighbor has done some things on his property, and he was concerned about how it would affect his lot, and I went on Google Earth to take a look what's happened over the last, since 2016, and it went from a backyard with an above-ground pool with very little other things in the backyard but grass, to now the thing has what looks like a basketball court, an in-ground pool, some type of patio area, and the lot doesn't look the same anymore. It looks all developed, and so that's increased the runoff.
Yeah.
And this fellow had a legitimate concern when he came in. And that person who did all that work, if we get this all in place, would be paying some extra money that goes towards the stormwater funds for the town. He's probably still happy with what he has in his backyard, like you said, that it would increase the value of his.
Now, yeah.
Yep, but,
Would it be retro or
no,
going forward?
going forward.
Yeah.
But that's only an idea. I mean,
Yeah.
there's other ways to do it.
Sure.
Is there a certain amount that we could, like, square foot, how much we could charge?
They didn't get into that kind of detail when they gave us these workshops, but I thought it was interesting that they didn't offer all these grants.
Yeah.
It was, you've got to come up with
Yeah.
a utility
Yeah.
mechanism to charge people. So that tells me the big message is,
Money.
there's no money
They
there
don't
for
have
you
any- their
to
budget
get from
was
us
there.
for
Here's an
free.
unfunded mandate that you're gonna have to
You
comply
gotta,
with.
you gotta go out and convince people on how to do this. So,
Yeah.
to answer your question, what I would, is you probably know what I'm doing all the time, is not inventing the wheel, but going out and finding out what other people did and try to utilize it. And there's a number of towns and cities that have done this already. And they found it to be successful in their town or their city, which may not be the same as West Bridgewater. So what we have to try to do is see some of the things they did and try to approach it from different angles and see what really fits well for West Bridgewater.
True.
And so if it means a 50-cent per square foot of impervious or $5 per square foot, those towns probably got that whole gamut of mechanisms, and we just have to find out what's good for us.
Something for residential, something for commercial, something industrial.
And obviously, you
Yeah.
don't want to heavily tax the residential,
True, yeah.
and you want to put more of the burden on the developers and the commercials, but you also don't want to drive people away either. So
Right.
there's got to be a happy medium here and see what works
And I
for
think
West Bridgewater.
with the education part and the incentivizing, I think that's fair. I think it's more than fair.
Sure.
One of the workshop requirements was we had to talk and do an interview with some people from the town. And so Chris and I picked out a few people, and we talked with them one-on-one and asked them some basic questions. And almost everybody is concerned about flooding. Everybody's concerned about pollution. And they're also concerned about the changes in how their town is looking. So I think the attitude out there is that something needs to be done. I did get the impression that a lot of the people we interviewed didn't want to spend a lot of their own money doing this. So I think it really points
Sure.
to new projects more than taxing people that are already living here.
Right.
But like I said, we'll see. But the thing that really impressed me was that people are really concerned about the quality of their drinking water, which all of this tries to protect. They're concerned about flooding and how it affects their properties. And so if we can reduce the flooding and the pollution, I think that's what people really want. And I think the other thing they don't want to see is the money just go off into some fund
Yeah.
that's being used by everybody in town.
Yeah.
They want to see it dedicated to stormwater.
Exactly.
That's it.
That's it.
I'll finish up.
All right. Anything else? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Moving second, all those in favor?
All right.
So moved.
That.
My bag over there, did I leave that upstairs? I didn't see it, I didn't see it when I came. I knew.
Can you hear umbilical cord?
Support, there you go.